Emma Collins sat frozen in the glass-walled conference room, 20 pairs of eyes locked on her. The microphone on the table had died mid-presentation, leaving a thick, uncomfortable silence hanging over the meeting. But the problem wasn't the equipment. The problem was that Emma had just revealed something no one was supposed to know. She could understand what people were saying, even when she couldn't hear them. At 25, Emma had mastered invisibility. 3 months into her temp job at Miller Industries, not one person knew the color of her eyes. She kept her head down, her words minimal, her presence ghost-like. The conference room around her looked like an aquarium. Glass walls, clean light, and people who lived comfortably on the surface. Emma lived in the quiet beneath it. David Miller, the 32-year-old CEO, ruled the room with precision. Everything about him was sharp: his suit, his speech, his judgment. He'd built an empire on control and distrust. Every contract was armor, every deal a battlefield. When the strategist's mic failed, he'd frowned, already calculating how the glitch looked to their international investors. They were speaking in Japanese now, voices low, anxious. Emma's pen moved quickly, almost without her realizing. She could see their lips. And she could understand. Your projections ignore third-quarter volatility, Mr. Tanaka said. Misato worries about the currency fluctuation. Emma wrote it down automatically. She had been partially deaf since she was 7. The world had muffled itself overnight, and she'd fought back by learning to see sound instead of hear it. Lip-reading became her superpower, her secret language. But she'd learned not to tell anyone. People's faces always changed when they found out pity first, then discomfort, then distance. So she learned to survive quietly. When David looked around the room and asked sharply, "Can anyone understand what they're saying?" Silence fell. Then his eyes found her. "You in the corner. You've been writing. Did you catch any of that?" Her heart slammed against her ribs. Everyone turned to look. Mr. Tanaka said, "Your numbers don't account for Asian market volatility. Misato's concerned about currency risk." She whispered. The room went dead still. Rachel Adams, David's assistant and the self-appointed queen of this kingdom, turned sharply, her tone dripping with disdain. "That's quite an imagination for a secretary." David's gaze hardened. "How could you possibly know that?" Emma's palms were cold. "I just guessed." Rachel's smile was sharp as glass. "Based on your expertise in international finance, I suppose?" Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the room. Emma wished the floor would swallow her whole, but David didn't laugh. He leaned forward, studying her like a puzzle. "Translate for them," he ordered finally. Emma blinked. "Sir, tell them we'll review the projections and address their concerns." Her mouth went dry, but she obeyed. The words rolled from her tongue smoothly, perfectly accented. The investors froze, then nodded, impressed. When the meeting ended in applause, instead of disaster, Rachel's glare could have cut glass. Emma spent the rest of the day trying to be invisible again. But invisibility once lost is hard to recover. By the next morning, whispers chased her through the office. She speaks 6 languages. She's some kind of spy. HR didn't even vet her background properly. When David's assistant called her to his office, Emma knew the reprieve was over. Inside, the CEO didn't invite her to sit. "Yesterday I reviewed security footage," he began. "You were near Johnson and Matthews by the elevators." They were whispering. "You were watching them closely." Her blood ran cold. She remembered that moment. She'd just been waiting for coffee, but had automatically caught their conversation about David being out of touch. "About the company needing younger leadership? You understood them, didn't you?" David pressed. "Even though they were quiet, even though your back was turned." Emma hesitated. "I didn't hear them. I read their lips." David's eyes narrowed. "You read their lips?" "Yes," she said softly. "I have partial hearing loss. I've learned to lip read in multiple languages. It's automatic now. I can't turn it off. But I'm not spying. I swear I'm not." He studied her for a long moment. "That makes you either very valuable or very dangerous." She met his gaze, unflinching. "I know." 2 days later, during a critical negotiation with a client named Mr. Chen, Emma sat quietly at her usual corner seat. Pretending to take notes, everything seemed fine until Mr. Chen leaned toward his advisor, covering his mouth, and whispered in Mandarin about outsourcing production to inferior suppliers. A
lie wrapped in polite words.
Emma's stomach turned. She looked at Rachel, smiling as if everything were perfect. She looked at David, ready to sign. If she spoke and was wrong, she'd be fired. If she stayed silent and was right, the company would be defrauded. Her voice shook. Mr. Miller, I think there's a problem with the delivery clause. Rachel scoffed. Emma, we're in the final stages, Emma stood. Mr. Chen just said the timeline is unrealistic. They'll outsource to cheaper suppliers, and the quality won't match the standards you expect. The room erupted. That's false. Mr. Chen snapped. You said it in Mandarin, Emma said quietly. The color drained from his advisor's face. David's voice was calm, but lethal. Repeat exactly what he said. Emma did word for word, tone for tone. Within an hour, legal confirmed the deception. Not criminal, but dishonest. The deal collapsed. The company lost millions in potential revenue. By evening, Emma sat in the copy room, crying quietly. Bo Brown, the old security guard with kind eyes and twin hearing aids, found her. They think I ruined everything, she whispered. You didn't ruin anything, Bo said gently. You told the truth. You saw something wrong and spoke up. People laugh when they don't understand, but you know you're special, right? Emma wanted to believe him, but all she felt was the sting of rejection. The next morning, Rachel was waiting. Mr. Miller wants to see you. Now, inside the office. Rachel stood beside David, like a prosecutor, next to a judge. She's unstable, Rachel said smoothly. She accuses clients, destroys deals, and makes everyone nervous. People don't feel safe around her. David looked at Emma. Tell me why I should keep you here. Emma swallowed hard. Because I care more about doing what's right than doing what's safe. I didn't lie. I didn't manipulate anyone. I just didn't want to watch you be deceived. David's expression was unreadable. I'll decide by Friday. You're dismissed. Emma walked out, heartbreaking. For the next 2 days, she existed like a ghost. Then Thursday came, and chaos followed. A $40 million contract was about to collapse. Their interpreter had suffered a stroke. The Spanish-speaking clients were already in the building. Panic filled the halls. Rachel barked orders. Executives scrambled for a replacement. Emma stood in silence, heart pounding. She could do it. She could save them. But speaking up might destroy her last chance of keeping her job. Bo's voice echoed in her mind. People laugh when they don't understand. But you know you're special, right? Before she could stop herself, she stepped forward. I can do it. Every head turned. Rachel's voice was venom. This isn't the time for games. David stared at her. You're fluent? Yes, she said, steady now. My grandmother only spoke Spanish. Lip-reading it was how I stayed connected to her after I lost my hearing. He hesitated, then nodded. Conference room A, 10 minutes. If you make one mistake, it's over. Emma nodded once. Understood. And as she walked to that conference room, she realized this was it, the moment she'd either fall completely or finally be seen. The world outside Miller Industries looked the same: glass towers, rushing crowds, and a city that never cared for quiet people. But for Emma Collins, everything had changed. She no longer hid behind the glass walls of invisibility. Now she stood in rooms where her voice shaped decisions. The air itself felt different, lighter, like she finally belonged to it. It had been 1 year since the day she'd stopped hiding. 1 year since she'd risked everything by exposing Hartley International's deception. 1 year since David Miller, the man who trusted no one, had decided to trust her. Now, Emma was Director of Strategic Communications and Risk Assessment, a title she'd never imagined carrying. Yet every morning when she walked through the lobby, she remembered the girl she once was, the temporary secretary with shaking hands and a notebook full of silence. Bo Brown. The security guard who'd first seen her worth greeted her with his usual smile. His hearing aids glinted in the light as he signed warmly, "Morning, Director." Emma laughed softly. "Morning, Bo. You know you don't have to call me that." Bo winked. "I know, but you earned it." Those simple words grounded her every day. Inside the building, the Different Voices program was thriving. It had started as a small company initiative, a bold experiment to hire people with disabilities, neurodivergence, or other unconventional strengths. Now it was transforming the very culture of Miller Industries. There was Jonah, a visually impaired analyst who could detect trends in audio data that computer algorithms missed. There was Priya, an autistic programmer whose pattern recognition bordered on genius. There was Malik, a veteran whose trauma had once kept him from work. Now leading crisis strategy with calm precision, Emma had found her people, and in helping them be seen, she'd finally seen herself. That morning, David called her into his office. He'd changed to the sharp, distrustful CEO was now a man learning to lead with vulnerability. The blinds were open, sunlight spilling onto his desk. He gestured for her to sit, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You've built something remarkable, Emma. The board's calling Different Voices the company's soul. Investors love it. The press can't get enough of it." Emma smiled, but she could tell from his tone there was more. "But," David leaned back, hands steepled, "it's not enough anymore. What we've done here, it's proof that inclusion isn't charity. It's strategy. Other companies need this. I want to take it national. Create a consulting branch that helps businesses build what we've built. And I want you to lead it." Emma's breath caught. You," David said simply. "You've lived this. You understand it in a way no one else can." She felt both awe and fear collide inside her. "David, that's huge. What if I'm not ready?" He smiled faintly. "You once told me courage isn't about being ready. It's about showing up anyway." Emma laughed softly, blinking back sudden tears. "I said that." He nodded, and I wrote it down. The offer hung between them, not just a promotion, but a mission. A chance to change more than a company. A chance to change how the world saw difference itself. After a long silence, Emma said the only words that felt right. "I'm in. Let's do it." By the time autumn arrived, Different Voices Consulting had its first clients, corporations wanting to build inclusive hiring programs, schools seeking communication training, hospitals hoping to improve accessibility. Emma traveled constantly, giving talks, hosting workshops, mentoring leaders who'd never considered that silence could be a strength. But success brought pressure. The work was personal. Every story of a struggling employee or ignored applicant reminded Emma of her own pain. She carried those memories like invisible weights. One evening, after a long day of training sessions, she returned to her office and found a letter on her desk. Handwritten, no sender. She opened it carefully. "Ms. Collins, you don't know me, but I know your story. I read about you online. I have a daughter who stopped speaking after her classmates bullied her for her hearing aids. She hides them now. Refuses to go to school. But last night I showed her your video, your conference speech, and she cried. She said, 'Mom, she's like me. You gave her hope.' For that, thank you." A grateful mother, Emma sat back, eyes wet. That single letter meant more than any award or headline. She'd once believed being different made her broken. Now her difference was helping heal others. The next day brought a new challenge. At 10 a.m., during a client presentation, a senior executive from one of the partner companies made an offhand comment, cruel. "Thoughtless, of course. We want diversity," he said with a laugh. "But we can't exactly fill the office with people who can't hear or see or sit still, can we?" The room froze. Emma felt the old ache rise, the sting of being unseen, the heat of injustice. The part of her that used to shrink back wanted to disappear. But another part, the one Bo had helped her find, stood taller. She met the man's gaze. "With respect, sir," she said evenly, "you just described some of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with." The analyst who saved your company from a multi-million-dollar loss last month, he's legally blind. The engineer whose efficiency model cut your costs by 30%? She has ADHD. Inclusion isn't charity. It's how progress happens. Silence. Then slow applause from one of the younger executives, then another. The man flushed, muttered something about no offense, and the meeting continued. Afterward, Emma's assistant, Sophie, the shy girl she'd once mentored, whispered, "I can't believe you said that to him." Emma smiled. "I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore." That evening, she met Beau in the lobby again. He leaned on his cane, watching her with quiet pride. "You're still fighting the good fight," he said. Emma laughed. "Some days it feels like I'm just surviving it," Beau sighed slowly. "You don't just survive, Emma. You lead." He paused, then added, "Remember what you told me that first week? You said silence was safer than explanation. Still believe that?" Emma smiled softly. "Not anymore. Silence protects nothing worth saving." Months passed. The consulting branch grew beyond expectation. Emma became a national voice for inclusion, speaking at universities, corporate summits, even government panels. But the moment that changed everything came on a gray winter morning when she returned to her old office floor. The one where it had all begun. The same glass walls. The same conference table. The same corner where she'd once tried to disappear. Now, a new temp sat there, a young woman nervously adjusting her badge. Emma approached gently. "First week." The girl nodded. "Is it that obvious?" Emma smiled. "Not at all. Just familiar." The girl hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Is it true you used to work here as a temp too?" "It's true. And that you almost got fired?" Emma chuckled softly. "Also true. So what happened?" Emma thought for a moment, then said, "I stopped hiding." The girl frowned slightly. "Wasn't that scary?" "The scariest thing I've ever done," Emma admitted. "But it's also the only reason I'm still here." She reached into her bag, pulled out a small notebook, the same one she used to carry in that corner seat. She tore out a page and wrote a single line. "Your difference isn't your flaw. It's your superpower." She folded the note and handed it to the girl. "Keep this. Someday you'll need to remember it." The girl smiled shyly. Eyes bright with gratitude, Emma walked out of that glass room one last time, the echo of her own courage following behind her. That night, the city shimmered in rain. Emma stood by her apartment window, watching droplets race down the glass. Her phone buzzed. A message from David. "We did it. The first national conference for different voices launches next spring. You'll keynote. The world's about to hear you, Emma." She smiled through the reflection of city lights. Once her world had been silent. Now it was filled with voices all different. It's all beautiful. And as thunder rumbled in the distance, Emma whispered to the night, not in fear, but in certainty, "Let them hear us all."